Hello, you lovely lot, and welcome back to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. I am your guest host, George Sheard, and I'm joined by a very special guest, probably the specialist guest we're ever going to get on this podcast. It is the once and future host, Josh Carr.
Oh, hello. Thank you.
Yeah.
Am I that special? I'm
Yeah.
here literally every week.
You are,
So
yes, but
I am part of the Who Knew furniture.
you are Who Knew.
So.
You are this. I am filling some huge boots for one episode, and I'm delighted and nervous and so excited to get into this.
I'm nervous. This is the first time I've done this in a very long time, and it's also very weird hearing someone do your intro at you.
Oh yeah,
someone else.
It felt strange.
I've
from
passed my child
well.
onto you for the day, and you must look after it and cradle it.
You can trust
care.
me with it. I will.
I
take
can
good care
absolutely
of your child.
trust you. You're an old hat in this game.
Yeah, just to make sure you're not actually giving me a child, right? It's just a podcast.
No, not an actual child.
Thank God.
Unless you ask. Unless you ask very politely.
So, yeah, I mean, this is exciting. So, Who Knew has been like, I mean, maybe I'm biased considering I'm hosting it today, but one of the best Doctor Who podcasts out there. It ran for a good amount of time.
Thank you.
Up until around about last year. And it's been, I mean, you were telling me it's been March last year, the last time you did a recording for this?
So like sort of over 18 months, getting on really nearly for 2 years since I was sort of doing it full time.
Mm.
So it's been a long time. It's sort of, I don't really know how it's snowballed into this long.
But how do you feel?
But we can get into that.
We'll get into that. How do you feel about it? Like right in this second after pressing record on voice recorder, OBS or whatever, and just sitting here, obviously hearing someone else do the intro is weird, but how do you feel sitting down and recording a Who Knew episode for the first time in almost 2 years?
I feel bloody excited about it.
I can tell.
Yeah, no, I am loving it. I'm loving being back. It's weird because, I've not really gone anywhere. Like I've still been around on like Twitter, and I did, I've done other things, and I've been doing the audio series and stuff, but I've not really been posting anything. Like I've not really been doing much content. I've done the odd thing here and there, like we did Doctor Who Night,
of course,
a few months ago and stuff. But it's just, it's just been a bit weird because I really have done a full 360, 180 spin round on Who Knew over the past 18 months, which again we'll sort of get into why it's been gone and why it's coming back. But right now I feel very, very happy.
It is
and very excited.
It is exciting, and it's I was a fan of it, and I'm not a big podcast guy. I try not to, especially as a Doctor Who content creator. It's really hard to consume Doctor Who media without sitting there and thinking, oh, I should be doing this, you just kind of, you pull things apart, you go, oh, I could talk about that, so you can never relax as a Doctor Who content creator and enjoy other Doctor Who mediums sometimes, as much as I try to, but Who Knew? What a show. And again, kind of, if I dare say, it kind of appeared out of nowhere initially, but
it did,
but to a great string of guests, to a great string of opportunities, to a great string of just some phenomenal content. I feel like I'm just adding lots of descriptive words, like I'm in a sort of English essay back in school, but it is absolutely incredible watching it sort of grow from effectively nowhere into where we end up with the Comic-Con panel, which of course we'll get into.
But
let's start from a Doctor Who perspective. Let me take a great opportunity here of being the host of this podcast and pick your brains, how you would usually pick some of your incredible guests' brains, including myself in that incredible bunch, by the way.
Yes, you are. Yeah,
we're gonna go
more than once. More
than twice.
You're a mainstay on Who Knew. You've been on. You're an old whore. You'll show up for anything.
Exactly. So, putting you in the guest spot, putting you in the sort of interviewee position for once, Don't know how that feels. Is that a nice feeling?
Well, it's fine. I mean, I've been on other podcasts before. I've been on your podcast. I've been on Nostalgia Bait.
Oh yeah,
I've been on
good.
your other. I've been on Spill Your Beans, of course, as
Don't
well.
talk about that one anymore. Yeah.
I've been on Come Along Pond.
Yeah.
I've been on an awful lot of running. That's what I've enjoyed over the past sort of year and a half, 2 years. It's just being the guy who just pops up on other people's podcasts, and I don't have to do any admin work. I don't have to edit. I don't have to do anything else.
Of course.
I just pop up, just chat along. So that was nice. And Nostalgia Bait was a nice little warm up for this. But this is one-on-one.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't think I grill people like Newsnight grill people.
No.
But, you know, I like to ask,
of course,
questions that will give challenging and good answers. So hopefully, oh God, I'll step up to the occasion and be a good guest on my own podcast.
Well, well, exactly. I'm not going to scare you too much. I'll start with a question that I'm sure Paxman would not be asking political people. And how did you get into Doctor Who?
Yeah, I mean, I've probably told this story many times on the podcast, but it's probably best to do it again in case there's any new listeners.
Just pretend I've had my mind wiped. I want to hear this story.
Yeah. Well, like I said, this is my new Disney era. It's a clean slate. This is series 1 again. You know, we're starting afresh.
Very good.
Everything before it is dead. No, I'm joking. So yeah, Doctor Who. I am what we would usually call on Who Knew a rose baby. I call them rose babies. People who started in 2005 with Rose. But I've got very clear memory. A lot of my clearest memories as a child are relating to Doctor Who. I don't really remember a lot from my childhood. Blocked it out because of all the bullying, probably. But yeah,
I think the true experience of any Doctor Who fan, really.
Exactly. But yeah, no, I remember seeing that trailer, the one that everybody always talks about. Everyone talks about it on Who Knew as well. The one, I'll throw my life in for danger. And it's like Chris and Rose stood in the TARDIS, and the Doctor's like running from the explosion behind him in that big tunnel thing. Iconic trailer.
Great trailer.
And I saw that, and none of my family are Doctor Who fans. That literally, as far as I'm aware, there is no one who is like anywhere near as much of a Doctor Who fan as I was. So there was no one there to convince me to watch Doctor Who. It was literally just, I was, as we would now refer to, a neurodivergent child, and an undiagnosed neurodivergent child. And it just, I don't know, it just called me in, and I got a bit obsessed with the trailer. I didn't know that it was an old show that was coming back. I just thought it was a new TV show. And I just got really obsessed with it, and obsessed with the idea of watching it. So I was at my dad's house that Saturday night, and I was, you know, we were in Sainsbury's. I remember being in Sainsbury's getting 3 for £1 sweets, like fizzy belts and like rainbow laces and stuff. Ugh, capitalism really popped off today, sis. Yeah, and I remember we were late, and I was sort of like dragging my dad around the shop because it was like bang on sort of whatever time it was that it was broadcast. I can't remember, like 20 past 6.
iPlayer and before like
yeah, exactly. So I was going to miss the start of it, and I was like, we're going to miss this program that I really want to watch. And we ran back across the road into my dad's flat, turned on the telly, got it straight on. I was sat literally this far, like inches away from the screen, like a child does.
Love that.
Cross-legged with sweets. And the first thing I saw, missed the opening titles, and missed sort of the setup. So the first thing I saw was the Auton coming towards Rose before it chops, and then the Doctor says, run. So that run moment is probably the first thing I ever saw of Doctor Who.
That's
and it's
great.
like, obviously it's a great moment with the build-up anyway, but when that is your first like experience of anything, just this man just grabbing your hand and saying run, I was just obsessed.
That's incredible.
I now sort of remember where I was watching every other episode of Doctor Who pretty much for my entire life. Yeah, but most of them, I remember that I can sort of pinpoint key events and key days based on Doctor Who episodes. And
I can do that
I
sometimes.
was just
I
hooked
think
from there. Yeah.
it's something that my family get quite sort of pleasantly annoyed with. I'd say is that
Yeah, Jess does as
they'll be
well, yeah.
like, yeah, when was that holiday? And I'll go, it was 2014. And they go, well, no, wait, no, it wasn't. It was 2015. So I go, I know it was 2014 because this episode of Series 8 of Doctor Who was coming out at the time, and I was
do the
watching it
exact same
then.
thing.
It's
do the
like
exact same
I
thing.
can identify when something was based on what Doctor Who was
Yeah.
happening at that point.
Jess said to me the other day, she was like, when was, because Jess has got a great memory,
Yeah.
but she was trying to remember when her brother's wedding was. And I was like, oh, it was probably around this date in August 2014. She was like, how do you know that? You know nothing. And I was like, oh, it was the day that Missy got revealed. So I was like, I remember the itching at the wedding, wanting to go home to watch Doctor Who, and then getting home at like 1 o'clock in the morning and watching the Missy reveal.
Oh my God!
I was like, I remember distinctly. I'm pretty sure Obama won one of the elections the night John Hurt got revealed, because I also went to see Jack White in Blackpool. Just little nuggets of information like that. They just stick in my brain. So
yeah, it's how you associate it. Like early sort of Eccleston, like for me, definitely, like I think it kind of just washes over because I think I watched it so many times on repeat.
Yeah.
That original memory is kind of lost because I can't remember. Like I have memories of watching it. Not a clue if it was the first time I watched it or not. Probably not.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating. I think by the time I was like watching Doctor Who like avidly, Series 2 was already out. So it was a weird sort of.
Because you're a few years younger than me, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you were watching it fairly young.
I was 4
when like the target.
I was 4 when Series 1 came out. So I remember seeing Dalek.
That's young.
Yeah, I remember seeing Dalek because my dad was watching it, and I was terrified of it. I remember seeing the Dalek fly up the stairs, and then it was only like a year or so later, 2006, but like later on 2006, then my dad bought both DVD box sets and was like,
yeah,
okay, we're going to watch this. And I watched all of it. Like, I think it was always like a before school thing. It was like in the morning with breakfast, I'd watch it and then go into school. So a lot of those memories are the same. But when it got to like the episodes watching live on TV, like Series 3 onwards, that's when I start to be like, I remember where I was, when I was, etc. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm literally the prime target age for it. I think I'm just lucky to be born because I'd say if you first watch Doctor Who when you're 8 years old, I'd say that's the prime spot for me.
Yeah.
Prime spot is like 7 or 8 because it's exactly what a 7 or 8-year-old wants from their telly. And I'd literally just turned 8 when Rose aired, sort of a month before. So I was literally just bang on in the target audience for it.
Yeah.
And it was just a match made in heaven. And like still to this day, I am probably the only real Doctor Who fan in my family. And
that's
I don't have many friends. Well, just end that sentence there.
Yeah, that's a good little clip, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't have many friends. I don't have many friends, and I've never had many friends who are massive Doctor Who fans.
No.
Like some casuals, and that's sort of when in lockdown I got into sort of the online fandom a bit more because I'd never really been a part of it until sort of 2020, and I met people like you, and I've now got mates who I meet occasionally, or sometimes have never met in real life because we've never met in real life.
We've never met in real life, which is odd.
We've done so much together, but we've just never.
It's because you know what? It's because I'm quite tricky with in-person Doctor Who sort of events, so I don't tend to go to many of them. If any, like any sort of BFI things, I just it's not like I avoid it. It's just like I just don't have that interest to be like, oh, I want to do that actively. But I think it's it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we have worked on so much together. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. I love that story. I love that the first moment you remember is that the run bit. I like the specific memory of not getting the beginning of it.
Yeah. Like, I don't know when I would have seen the title sequence, it might have been the end of the world.
Probably was.
Like, I
at
probably
that
wouldn't
point.
have, unless there was like a repeat or something. Like, this was even before the age of having like Sky Plus.
Yeah.
Like, this for my family, it was, my dad had a DVD recorder, so I never had any of the box sets.
Right.
I used to record all of the episodes onto a DVD disc.
That's good.
And I would draw my own, like, and I have these, so I've got a picture of one of them somewhere.
That's
and I will post
amazing.
it on Twitter because it is absolutely horrendous. It is like, it's a 9-year-old trying to draw a krillitane, and it is
amazing.
exactly how awful you would imagine it to be. But I drew my own like DVD covers,
Right, yeah.
as like those sort of like 3-episode box sets that you, like the DVDs that you'd get. Yeah, I made my own versions of those.
Love
So,
that. That's
yeah.
great.
Any more indicators that I didn't have many friends growing up?
I don't know. There's
one
something
right there.
special about that, though. Those are memories you can't
Yeah.
ever kind of recreate. You know, you're sort of like,
Mhm.
those are core memories for you growing up. And I think with a lot of people who are
Yeah,
Doctor Who
yeah.
fans, you have a lot of those sorts of memories where you do sort of, you grow up with that. And it's, yeah, I like a lot of those key moments. And I think you're sort of right about the age thing as well. I was saying, like, with the 8-year-old thing, I got into it when I was like 5, 6. But like peak age for me, again, I was 8 when Tennant was regenerating. So like I was into it already, and I was
And then
locked in when Matt
yeah.
Smith started. That was when I really was like, okay, now I'm, yeah.
Mhm.
It's so interesting. And we talked about, I mean, I've got the other question of like, you know, were you a fan growing up, early memories and all that sort of thing. You kind of covered that in a sense. I thought it was interesting that like none of your family would like that big on Doctor Who. When you
Yeah,
when
not
you
really,
were like,
not even sci-fi particularly,
yeah,
to be
that's
honest.
interesting.
Like, my dad's like a fan of all sorts of films, really. But like, yeah, there wasn't much of like a sci-fi going fan base in my family or anything. But it's just sort of like, I was already into sort of Star Wars and stuff at that point. I remember, because obviously you had the prequels. Sort of the few years before.
Same here. Like I was even
Yeah.
at a very young age, I was a Star Wars kid. I remember very vividly. It was Toy Story 2, Spider-Man, then Star Wars, then Doctor Who, and that
exactly
was
the same
my
for me. Well, Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man, the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, is the first film I ever saw at the cinema.
Wow,
So
really?
that's a core memory. So yeah, I think things like that, probably like watching Star Wars with my dad, because that's like, he's a big fan of Star Wars films, like, because he remembers going to see them with my granddad in the 70s, and you know, watching things like that and Spider-Man, that sort of prepped me for this sort of sci-fi fantasy loving world. And then Doctor Who came in and just consumed me. Absolutely consumed
perfect
me,
balance,
and I was
it,
obsessed.
I think for a lot of British kids growing up as well, it's very that balance of this higher concept sci-fi, but with that Earth level everydayness. And I watch that now. Like at the longer it goes on since Series 1 came out, the more you go back and watch it and go like, that's what it felt like growing up in the 2000s. You know, they got that spot on. I don't care about, I mean, like, Star Wars is great, right? But like, you don't watch the prequels and go, damn, this reminds me of early 2000s Britain. No, it doesn't. Like, but Doctor Who does, right?
And there was a lot of that for me as well, because obviously I live in Norwich now, but I'm originally from the Northwest, so I grew up in Southport. And Chris Eccleston is like having a sort of a northern like figure on TV like that for me, who spoke like me and spoke like the adults that I knew, but was talking about space and aliens and stuff, was so cool to me as a kid. So I just instantly connected with him, and he's
probably a little bit same as well, actually.
Yeah,
grew up in like Newcastle, hearing like a northern voice, you know.
Yeah.
So interesting.
And I think they nailed that, going sort of the regional route rather than the RP straight away. Sort of getting, obviously I know that they moved more to that with Tennant, but it just made it really relatable for me and really hooked me in.
Yeah, no, it's an important part of that character, that whole image. It was it might not have been as successful if it was anything else at the time, and I think they just got the right thing, right place, right time, right actor, right style, right look, everything. Lightning in a bottle, and it's created something incredible from, you know, years past. In terms of like growing up with Who, and then like as someone who has been in the sort of Doctor Who YouTube sphere for longer than I'd care to admit to the everyday person, I find that it's like you don't come across many people who like everyone loves the show, everyone wants to do it. Every now and then you see someone and go, they are genuinely they're good at this. They're good at, and that's what I think when I work with you, and I've said this before, I'm not just trying to inflate your ego. This is something that like I mentioned on
Please inflate my
Nostalgia
ego.
Bit.
Please.
On Nostalgia Bit, we mentioned this as well. It's like when you asked me to do like a podcast for Who Knew, when you asked me to be a guest on there, I had at the time I got a few of those sort of requests, and I like to do them. It's quite fun. But with yours, the recording corrupted and we had to do it again.
Yeah,
But,
which I don't know if you know, was actually 4 years ago this week. That recording.
Really?
Yeah.
4
it was
years?
4 years ago. This Tuesday coming up, it'll be 4 years. I double checked that last night because I was like, I'm sure it was around now.
That checks out, yeah.
I was like, and then we did I'm pretty sure we did the next one sort of like a week later. So
We
it was
did.
around the anniversary.
Oh my god.
I remember that. But yeah, it was
That's
4 years ago this
crazy.
week.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm sort of bringing it back on the 23rd, because the 23rd is 4 years since Who Knew. Obviously, it's the anniversary of Doctor Who.
Yeah,
but I also launched on the, what would that be, the 57th anniversary I launched on. So it's the anniversary of Who Knew and Doctor Who. So
bloody hell, I didn't think about that. But that's spot on. That rings a bell now, and that's. I remember, but I remember the week obviously we had to do it again. Something I was like more than happy to do it, and I remember like being like, there was something about the way you presented, the way you sort of held yourself, and hosted that made me so enthusiastic about doing it again and again and again and again because of how many things we've worked on together. I'm not a very collaborative YouTuber for my sins. I'm very unorganized and find it difficult to work with people who I don't really know that well. Well, you are probably one of the exceptions of like, I've worked with you so many times and I will continue to keep working with you because your passion towards what you do is fascinating and wonderful, which is why I find it interesting when you say you weren't part of the online community before like lockdown. And I think that you clearly have such a creative nature naturally. What was there something that put you off joining the online community, or was it like you just hadn't really thought that it would be something that would interest you? Did you ever think about making YouTube content or anything like that? Did you ever watch any YouTubers?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I've always been sort of creative. I was back in school. I did a lot of acting. I did music for a while. Not many people know this about me, but I had quite a good go sort of in my late teens of trying to be a musician, like trying to be sort of like a solo acoustic artist. And I stopped sort of enjoying that and gave it up. I mean, if you do some written, you can find some very dodgy music from me out there.
Doing that research now,
so please don't do that. But yeah, no, I sort of did a lot of that, and I had a couple of false starts at trying to do YouTube. I did have a film YouTube channel that I did a couple of videos on in sort of like 2015, 2016 called Roughly Cut. I did like a couple of videos on like the Oscars and like films of the month and stuff like that. Yeah, I'd had a couple of false starts with YouTube and stuff, and I'd always wanted to do like YouTube. I hadn't really thought about doing a podcast or something, to be honest. And in terms of why I hadn't really connected with like the Doctor Who, I just didn't really know that it was so much of a thing out there. I'd never really thought about it, and it was more that the Doctor Who community sort of came to me, not like they all flocked to me, but it just sort of gradually happened. Like in lockdown, because I had a lot of time on my hands and a BritBox subscription, I decided for the first time to go and watch all the classic Who.
Yeah.
And I watched it from the start, just through BritBox, just cleared through everything. And I just started doing odd little tweets about it. People started replying. I started doing stuff. And then also just in lockdown to try and keep me sane, I was trying to do creative things. Like I was trying to get into a bit of graphic design, like making logos and stuff. So it's actually the first time we interacted was, I think, either I did 2 big threads that sort of got me into the Doctor Who world, where loads of people followed me about Doctor Who, and I followed loads of people back. I did a thread of spin-off ideas, which I've since redone, where I did like title cards for spin-offs and stuff.
I love that.
Yeah, and that was really fun because that was just me just trying giving graphic design a go. And then I got to know so many people through that, people like you. And also there was a Doctor casting thread where like I think you'd done like a few like graphic designy bits where you'd mocked up some Doctors.
Way back
and a few of the people that you'd done were in my thread, and you shared them on that, and you quote tweeted it. And I was like, oh my God, Ace Creeper's just quote tweeted me, Jess. Jesus Christ. And see, this is the thing. Like, I think I said this to you on Nostalgia Bait. Like, I was genuinely a massive fan, and I have been for years. Like, even though I wasn't sort of in like the Twitter sphere, like I'd watched people like you, people like Harbo, loads of other people on YouTube watching their Doctor Who content. Like I said to you on Nostalgia Bait, like, well, I've got a memory of sort of one of the worst days of my life. And one of the things that I did on that day was I put on one of your videos to try and
which is crazy
calm
to me.
myself down. And now, think about how it is to me. Like, this was like 6-7 years ago, and now you're hosting my podcast. Like, it's fucking mental. And I genuinely pinch myself every day that I get like that. People that I used to watch, like you and Davis and Will, Mr. TARDIS as well, like people that I used to watch as a fan, I'm now, and Richard as well, like Clever Dick Films. I went for a meal with Richard the other day, and it's like I was falling asleep to your voice during lockdown. It's so fucking weird. But and it's like just being able to call people like you and everyone else mates, and to collaborate creatively with you, as well as just chat to you all about Doctor Who every now and then and have a natter about it.
Yeah.
It's great. It's so fun, and I genuinely do pinch myself quite often. Like,
I share that sentiment as well, though. Like, it's the best thing about the Who community, I think, at least in terms of the creative side of it. I don't think it's as vibrant as it like used to be. I think there was a bit of a weird resurgence and golden age, definitely around lock time of like Doctor Who on YouTube. And I think that the great thing about it is there's always new people coming up and doing their thing. And I love that. It's like, I'm not at the peak of where I was at like Doctor Who, but like I'm not bothered anymore, like creatively. And I guess we'll talk about that with Who Knew a little bit as well. But like I don't care. I love that there's new people who come in and do their thing and can do something new and interesting with it. It's like, but for me, like I was a kid who grew up watching Who Addicts, Crispy Pro, like, you know, your Mr. TARDISes and stuff. Like, I'm so vividly aware of these content creators. So when I got to collaborate with them or got to do projects with them, it is still a bit of a pinch me moment as well, where I'm sort of like, this is mad, because I did grow up watching these content creators, and every now and then you have interactions with them. I remember there's I can't remember exactly what the channel's name. I think Smith Movies Inc. or something. It was like a Lego animator on YouTube, and they did a really great 11th Doctor mini series with Lego figures. And when I was like in like 9-10 peaks on Matt Smith, like series 5, I was obsessed with it. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was the dog's bollocks, and I absolutely adored it, and would like run around in the playground recreating bits from that Lego series. But then I got to interact with them on Twitter a few years ago, and a couple of messages back and forward, and I was just like, this is a really weird moment for me, because that's not even like of like YouTube. This is because I was never like that into Doctor Who YouTube, like really young, but that was one of my first things, and that was one of my core memories, where it's like that inspired me creatively to play and think of stories, and I'd get my own Lego figures and try and like do my own Lego animations. They were dog shit, but like I'd try and do it. But that interaction was like a proper like this person is like, they don't see themselves as anything all that in the same way that I don't, in the same way that you probably don't. It's like, that's why everyone's so kind of comfortable and chill in this community. And I think that's why it's creatively so rich, because you get people who some people may be like idolized, but they don't think that of themselves, and they're just like, yeah, cool, we'll do a collab. Yeah, fine, that's good.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that's why I think it's such a nice environment at the best of times. At the worst of times, it's horrible, but at the best of times,
it's fucking horrific.
It's really lovely and really creatively rich, I find.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was sort of where Who Knew came from, to be honest.
That's just where I was going to try to tail into. So where was the point where
we're on the same
wavelength, man.
I'm back in the hosting game, baby.
I'm just warming you up, man. That's all this is. So at what point did you sort of sit there and go, you know what, I want to do a Doctor Who podcast? What made you want to do it? And what made you go through with it? Like, what was the sort of thought process of going like from idea and conception to actually sitting and making this podcast?
Honestly, it really did. Like when you said before that it sort of came out of nowhere, it really did. I'd never really listened to like any Doctor Who podcasts before sort of lockdown. I'd listened to sort of football podcasts and stuff like that, like the Football Ramble and stuff, which I still listen to now. So I sort of knew the medium. But then in lockdown, when I was watching all of the classic Who, I was listening to some great podcasts. Unfortunately, a couple of them aren't really around anymore. New to Who, which are these Australian guys who sort of just did random classic Who episodes and covered them in a lot of detail. And that was a great little guide for me as I hit these milestones. And I was like, oh, I'm watching this episode, so now I can listen to their episode. They've not been around for a few years, but they were a massive inspiration for Who Knew. And also Lost on Gallifrey, Luke, who is still around on Doctor Who Twitter. We chatted a lot, and I went on there as well, which was a massive honor. And then I thought, maybe YouTube isn't the one for me. Maybe I should give podcasting a go. And I was sort of through like the threads that I'd posted and stuff, and I'd gotten to know like loads of other creatives, like not in detail, but just like following them and seeing their work, and people like you and other creators. And I'd sort of submerged myself in this Doctor Who Twitter world through lockdown, and I was like, there are so many creative, incredible people out here. I'm like, and there's just a big gap in the market. Because a lot of Doctor Who podcasts just sort of cover episodes, like, and it's just two guys or two people recording, and they pick an episode and they go through it, and that's great. I love listening to them. Like I listen to podcasts like that now, like Knowing Who, and obviously you and Cooper do it on Nostalgia Bait sometimes as well, and it's like, that's great. But I thought I was like a one-on-one interview with some of these amazing creative people, and I was like, let's just write a list. I was like, let's start writing a list. So write a list of like potential guests, like people who you think you could realistically get on the podcast. And then let's write a list of people who are like pie in the sky, people who have been on the show, like writers, directors, stuff like that.
Sure.
And some YouTubers as well were in the dream list. I think you were in the dream list, to be honest. Honestly.
Give over.
And no, honestly, and I found that list the other day. I found it, and it was pretty much 4 years to the day since I'd written it. I found it like last month, and you were at the top of that list.
Wow.
And
Jesus.
It was your name was right. Ace Creeper was right there, and I was like, and now we're planning this episode. It's insane. But yeah, and I wrote this list, and I literally got a list of about 300 names. I was like,
oh shit,
I've still got that list somewhere, and it's like, Jesus Christ, there are so many talented people that you could make a great sort of one-on-one interview podcast with. And I just started developing the idea. Like, I came up with a few different working titles. Who Knew was one of the ones that I liked, but the other, it was nearly called Knowing Me, Knowing Who,
which is great.
Obviously, it's an Alan Partridge reference, but I decided to get and I nearly did that, but I thought maybe stray away from making yourself like the Partridge of the Doctor Who world.
I think, and
I went for Who Knew instead. But and because I'd been messing around with graphic design at that point, I just made a logo, and I was like, it's pretty much the logo that you see now. I just made that, and I was like, ooh, this could be something. Let's just give it a go. And I'd never really thrown caution to the wind, done stuff like that.
Yeah. And then you sort of, you had some great like episodes, some phenomenal guests. And you talked to like Katie Manning is like one of the like top ones there. You got some great opportunities. I mean, obviously, like highlights. What is one or two interviews that really sort of stick out to you? And I know we talked about this on Nostalgia Bit, so I don't want to like rehash ground, but like I feel like there are some great little stories in there and great little ones.
Yeah, the Katie Manning one is nuts because that was so early on. Yeah, and it was like,
I remember seeing that and being like, oh shit, okay.
I was like, oh my God, because that's episode 10.
Yeah.
Episode 9 or 10 of Who Knew? I can't remember. But yeah, it's very early on. And I just thought, I was just chucking emails out, to be honest. This is what I think I said this on Nostalgia Bait. People ask me, what is your secret for getting these great guests? And I'm like, there is no secret. You just don't see how many people say no or don't reply.
It's always the same.
Because I reckon I've sent thousands of emails out.
Yeah.
I reckon we're in the realm of thousands now. If I've done loads and loads and loads of inquiries and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, like I said, sometimes people don't want to come on. It's fine. I don't really know how the Katie Manning one came about because they'd sort of said, oh, yeah, maybe possibly in the new year. Like, this was obviously about 4 years ago. So I'd sort of sent that in November, not expected to hear anything back. And then sort of like end of December, early January time. So I've only been doing the podcast for about a month at this point. I just get an email directly from Katie Manning.
It's crazy. It's such a crazy story.
Not her agent or anything, just an email just going, hello, love, do you want to record this podcast? Yes. Jesus Christ, yes. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. But yeah, I couldn't believe I could get guests like that so soon.
Yeah.
And then going on and getting Rob Shearman was a massive one for me. And Sophie Aldred a little bit later on as well. But yeah, no, I mean, the big ones are great, but often, not that I don't enjoy them. That's a ridiculous thing to say. Obviously, it's incredibly fun.
Like, as a general note, you enjoy all of them.
I enjoy all of them, but there's a level of nervousness and like stress involved in those ones,
of course,
that you don't get with ones like when I'm recording with you now. Like these are the one I really, really enjoy these ones because I'm a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah.
I'm usually not on as much of a time limit because obviously when you're working with bigger guests, often it's, you know, this is the time you've got. Try and work within that time.
Yeah.
And things change. Things can be like, it can chop and change. It's like, oh, I've got to go at this time now. And you've got to sort of changing the plans on the fly. So I enjoy these ones like just as much. I enjoy speaking to creators about their creative process. And that was just sort of what Who Knew was there for. I just wanted a platform to highlight the joy and the creativity of the fandom as much as I wanted it. It was never really intended to go to the point of interviewing people like Katie Manning. I never anticipated that would be the point.
Yeah.
And it was always geared more towards creators, but the podcast just sort of changed and it sort of became a bit of both. And
that's fabulous.
It still is to this day. So I love doing all sorts of interviews, really.
And you talk a little bit about like having to sort of with the bigger guests, trying to make changes on the fly and kind of last minute things.
Divas like you were an absolute
I was a pain in the arse, but no, but like it is. Again, coming off the back of what we talked about on Nostalgia Bit, the Comic-Con panel, an absolutely insane case of like working out what it is and that changing multiple times just through circumstance, and then the timing of that. you having to change all your questions. I mean, tell me about that. I mean, that is an incredible experience.
Scared the living shit out of me. So yeah, I mean, you can watch this on the YouTube, on the Who Knew YouTube channel.
Yeah.
If you want. But a couple of years ago, I got to interview. I got to host a Comic-Con panel with Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Paul McGann, which blows my tiny little mind to this day that I've done that. Like, it feels like a different person did that. And it's just sort of one of the greatest days of my life, one of the greatest achievements of my life. But yeah, as you said, that was where sort of the skills I'd learned on Who Knew of changing things on the fly, adapting to a scenario came in very handy.
Yeah.
Because obviously sort of in the lead up, it was 4 doctors at one point, then it was 3 doctors, then it was 2 doctors, then it was 3 different doctors, then it was it was like, I think at one point Sylvester McCoy was going to be there, at one point David Bradley was going to be there, Paul McGann wasn't going to be there, so that chopped and changed a lot in the lead up.
Yeah,
like we said on Nostalgia Rate, what threw a massive spanner in the works was Power of the Doctor airing 6 days before the panel.
Yeah,
and all 3 of those coming back to Doctor Who for the first time, and it was a massive. Obviously, that was a massive joyous moment for everybody watching it, because it was just a great bit of fan service.
Yeah,
seeing all of these doctors come back, but I had that initial joy, and then Jess has got a video of me actually watching Power of the Doctor, where I go like, "Oh my god!" and like they're there. I'm reacting to the episode, and then I go,
"I really want to see this video."
Oh my god! Oh my god! I might be the first person to interview all 3 of them after they've come back, especially to have them all there and sort of compare their experiences of filming it, and which is really a really interesting part of the panel. I'm really glad that I asked them about that, because, it was like, they filmed I'm pretty sure Peter Davison was like, yeah, I filmed mine like a year and a half ago. And Paul McGann was like, yeah, I filmed mine like a month and a half ago in a back room in a Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Someone just gave me the costume and shoved me in a room and filmed it.
It's crazy. But that's the thing, is like, that's where having these opportunities is the most exciting. Like, okay, it would be great anyway just to sit down with these people and talk to them about Doctor Who, but what a great experience that you get to not only do that, but get to ask them new questions, interesting questions.
Exactly.
That gives people as fans something that they want to see, that they want to hear, like about their experience on this episode. I mean, what an exciting opportunity, but also what a scary responsibility that must have been.
It was massive.
Then have to change all your questions like a week before. It was 6 days, you said?
I'd done a couple. 6 days. So I changed sort of the entire plan for the panel, and then also I had to change it on the day, because about 5 minutes before we went on stage, and this isn't me criticising them at all, because it was 4:30 on a Sunday after they'd been there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Signings, photo ops, all of this stuff. They must have been fucking knackered. And they were just like, can we try and wrap this up? It was meant to be 50 minutes. It ended up being about 25. So
still
I sort of had to, on the fly, have the entire panel.
That's what I'm saying.
Sort of, like, off the top of my head, just pinpoint, these are the questions I need to ask. These ones can go. We can get rid of this, get rid of that, and still have time for the audience to ask some questions as well.
I love that though, because again, I think that speaks volumes about your quality as a content creator and presenter, that on the fly, with next to no notice, you're able to chop and change things, where you can watch that panel and you wouldn't be able to tell. And even though obviously it must have been nerve-wracking, and everyone knows when you watch that, everyone's going to know that as a fan, you're going to be like shit scared, because anyone would be. I would be terrified.
And because I didn't get much time with them beforehand as well. But I think I don't think those 3 were aware that I was a big Doctor Who fan, because I think often they just have sort of like a member of Comic-Con staff doing the interviews and stuff.
But I was saying, it didn't show though, and I think that's the best thing, is that you can watch that, and it's like, the skill level it takes to do that should not be understated by people who have never done presenting, never done podcasting, never done content creation before. Sitting down with three of the Doctor actors with changing you're questioning a week in advance because of them being in the newest episode, getting such this incredible but nerve-wracking opportunity to be the first to ask them these things, but then also having to sort of chop and change that on the fly minutes before you go on stage. It's a lot. And I think that can go underestimated. And I think, again, it does speak volumes about your quality as a content creator, as a presenter, and is why I'm so glad that you are back doing more of this podcast, because, I'm excited to see what's next. Like what more of these sort of opportunities and exciting moments are we going to have, and how are you going to develop as a content creator is just wonderfully exciting, and I'm delighted to be here to sort of share a part in that history, if you will. On that, I do want to sort of talk.
Thank you very much.
I do want to talk a little bit about So Who Knew did sort of come to an end. At what sort of point? And we've all been there. I've had my YouTube stuff. I've done various projects. I've done various podcasts, and sometimes it's like you burn out. Sometimes you can't be bothered. Sometimes there's a bad experience. So I would be fascinated to know, like, what was it for you?
Yeah,
that was the sort of the straw that brought the camel's back. What was the sort of thinking behind going?
This is sort of why I wanted to do this episode. This isn't, a little narcissistic ego massage, even though it is quite nice. But I didn't want to be too self-indulgent with this comeback or anything. I just thought it'd be a nice way to sort of reintroduce people to the podcast who listened, and sort of explain where it's been, why I haven't been doing it, and also for new listeners, for this to sort of be like a nice little clean break before we go into a new era of Who Knew. So obviously I started a new series because I used to sort of run it as series, and it was series 5, I think. So I'd started a new series at the beginning of last year with James Moran, Josh Snares, and then Matt from Full Fat Videos.
Great lineup.
Massive YouTube channel. And I was really excited about them, and I had some other great guests lined up, but I just burnt out. I just absolutely creatively burnt out, and I did not have a healthy relationship with the podcast, if I'm honest. I was not doing it for the reasons why I initially wanted to do it. I was doing it for content creation. I was doing it. I need to get this out on this date. It became a second job, basically, and I loved the recordings, but the rest of it wasn't fun anymore. And I was like, if I'm not doing this, we live in a world where sometimes to earn money, you have to do things that are not fun, like a day job or something. And I was doing that on top of it as well, which didn't help. And I wasn't in a great place elsewhere. It was one of those things where it's like, well, if I'm not getting anything out of it creatively, if I'm not having fun, and I'm not earning any money from it either, I'm if anything, I'm spending more money on it than on equipment and like software and stuff than I am making from it. What's the point? Just stop.
I get that,
So I needed to stop, and it all sort of came to a head with the Matt, the Full Fat Video, the Matt from Full Fat Videos episode. I adored that recording. Like I said, all 3 of those were great recording sessions, and I loved them. That's the part of it that is never gotten old, and I always loved them, and I always come out of it with like this great buzz.
Yeah.
But it was all of the everything else around it, the edits, the presentation of it all. I'd done a big sort of pretty pointless rebrand where I redid all of the thumbnails from scratch. I sort of jazzed up the logo a tiny little bit, redid all of my socials and everything. So I was a bit knackered from doing that because I spent an entire weekend just doing that. And then I needed to edit the Matt Full Fat Videos episode. I just got obsessive about it being perfect because I was not in a good place. And I've said this before on other podcasts, I think, like, that podcast has like over 1,000 cuts in it.
Really?
Like, I was editing out every little breath and and ah, and don't get me wrong, it's a great. I'm really proud of it. It's a great episode, in my opinion. I love it, and it's not detrimental for it, but it was detrimental for me because it's like this like hour and a half long podcast has as many cuts in it as a Hollywood film does, and I've edited that basically non-stop on a whole weekend. Jess was like, you cannot go on like this. This is not healthy.
Yeah.
This is not a good you don't have a good relationship. So I was just like, right, okay, let's go on a break. Let's stop. And I'd recorded a couple of episodes, one of which was Dan Starkey, which I do still have the recordings for, and it will be coming out. It's a year and a half late. I'd announced it, and it was a massive episode for me. I was so happy because Dan Starkey was a dream guest because obviously he is the Sononauts, like he is that, like, and it was just a great episode, and I'm now in the process of editing it to get it ready. But I was just at that point, I was looking at those files, and I was like, I couldn't look at the files without basically nearly having a panic attack, and I was just like, I was hyperventilating even just looking at the video or the audio files. So I just had to just cut it out for a bit. And then the past year and a half, I mean, I'm pretty sure I spoke to you about this. I'd say it's sort of like April, May last year, it was as good as dead. It was like, I'm never going to do this again. Or I'd actually decided that I was going to bring it back for maybe three, 4 episodes and go out with a bang because I didn't want it to peter out in the way that it did. I wanted to sort of, actually, if I'm going to finish it, I'm going to finish it on my terms. So I was like, I'm going to plan a couple of episodes, edit the ones that I've got, and I'm going to try and get maybe a big guest in or something, or get a load of people involved and do one big final episode and finish it. And then if I ever want to bring it back in the future, I can. That never happened because, again, I just
it's more work.
I don't know.
You're making more work for yourself in order to let it go, and the fact of the matter is, it's detrimental to your own mental health and your time. It's not worth continuing. And anyone who watches it, listens to it, anything like that, they, as fans, wouldn't want you to do that to yourself. I'd rather have. Like, I'd rather not have another episode if you were looking after yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because it's you are the forefront of it. As I said, you are who knew, and that is the show is you. And if you're not happy and comfortable and enjoying it, the whole process, not just the recordings, that is not something that anyone would want you to put yourself through, and it's not something you should want to put yourself through. And I think it's completely fair enough. Like, I understand from a perspective of like content creation, it's so hard to let go of something that it almost feels like you're giving up, but it's not that. It never is that, and it's kind of recontextualizing that in your mind. Where, for me, there's plenty of. I mean, I used to make content on YouTube quite a lot, Doctor Who content weekly, and that's what I'm most well known for. But I don't do that anymore. Now, I could have kept that up. Like, I could have kept going. Like, it was a decent, during university, it being completely transparent, during university, it was, like, needed. If I didn't have YouTube, I would have had to have gone out and got a proper job. I couldn't have afforded to live in London off of just, like, my student maintenance loan. But after uni, I had to get a job, and then your time goes, and then it's like, I felt like I'd done everything I wanted to do with it, and I did about 3 or 4 different goodbye videos on YouTube, and you could come to think, like, why am I wasting time doing some sort of grand finale when I am still the same person? I'm still creatively wired and ready to make content, but it has to be what I want to do. And YouTube, for me, went from hobby to desperately trying to capture what people were interested in for the sake
that
of
was it.
revenue, for the sake of views, for the sake of notoriety. If I felt like I was falling off a bit, it was like, right, I've got to get on this. It's like, that's not healthy. YouTube, Twitter, any sort of online thing which it works in a sense of numbers, whether it be likes, retweets, whether it be views, likes, comments, subscribers, revenue, it's all the same and it's all as addictive as each other. And I think it's very, very easy to get roped into that. But it's
Exactly.
having the strength mentally to go, this isn't good for me, and I want to start doing things as a hobby again. For me, that's when like nostalgia bit comes in. It's frequent. We do it once a week. We've done that for a year. The reason we do that is not because we feel like we have to, not because we feel like we're letting anyone down if we don't do it, but because we enjoy it and we are happy and comfortable doing that podcast together. And any content that I make for my main channel, I'm not trying to do it once a week or once every other week because I feel like I need to, or there's that stress. I'm doing what I want to do when I want to do it because that is what makes me happy. I don't care if one person watches a video I put out or 1 million people watch it. Obviously, the million would be great, but I don't really care. Like, I am doing what I do because I'm a creative person and I enjoy sitting down and doing the whole process of that. And if I stop doing that, I don't do it. If I stop enjoying it, that's that. And I think that's a really important distinction to make.
We've definitely gone through very similar journeys there, I think.
Yeah.
Because that was another part of it, is I got obsessed with the numbers because these systems like YouTube and Spotify, they basically train you to get obsessed with the numbers. It's sort of a trap to get you obsessed with it. And it was like, well, I started this as a hobby and a passion. And it's like, and I'm now doing it. And it was like, I was spending so much time trying to make the podcast perfect. And then if one didn't do well, it would crush. I'd take it personally and it would crush me because I was just like, why do people not enjoy this? And it was like trying to change things, trying to jazz up the thumbnails, I made a new intro and everything. And I was like, let's try and, you just get obsessed with it.
It's so easy to fall into that. And it's just having the state of mind to go, no, and sort of take a step back. For me, it's like if views go down, I don't take it as people aren't enjoying the content. I take it as, okay, people aren't seeing this. What do I need to do to promote it? And like, what can I get about it? And I've had so many comments. It's really funny. Like, I've had so many comments in recent years where it's been like, I had no idea you were still making content. And I'm like, yeah, because the way these algorithms work on YouTube, Spotify, etc., it's all the same. TikTok as well. It's competitive. If you don't upload on YouTube like once a week, once every 2 weeks, you get hidden from this sort of network. And I found it so funny. And this is like a very analytical example. But when we started Nostalgia Bit, I would put the audio episodes with the same thumbnails on my main channel, which has like 27K. And they'd get just short of like 100 views, a couple hundred maybe if I'm lucky. Then we started a brand new channel with no subscribers, no nothing. And they got the same, and then eventually more views. And I think that's interesting from a YouTube perspective. Is just that fact of the matter is, because that channel is so old and I haven't uploaded in a while, it goes, people don't care about this channel. They don't want to see it. So we'll hide it away. And it's sort of, if I upload again, I've got to rebuild. But you just can't take notice of it. You make content for the enjoyment of making content. You know, it's the same way that people if you make a short film, you're not doing it for immediate success and fame and notoriety and money. You're doing it because you're creative and you want to make something and you've got that burning energy inside you. And I think the Doctor Who community is great at that. It's just understanding when to sort of manage it and balance it. And I'm delighted you're bringing back Who Knew, and we're here today recording the first new episode of Who Knew in almost 2 years is wonderful, and I'm so delighted to be here to do it with you.
I'm really, really happy to be back. And it's again as well, was a lot of it was, like I said, I was not in a great place in other parts of my life. Like I was very sick of the 9 to 5 grind because I've got a day job, and I think a lot of that pressure and a lot of that stress is where that came from. Was just not necessarily, like, I wasn't like yearning for fame or anything like that. I needed a way out of that life.
Yeah.
And I saw the podcast as my best and sometimes only opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
So it became more important than it should be in a way. It became more like, oh my God, this is like, I was putting too much pressure on it, and it became not fun. I also went through a phase where I was like, I can't listen to podcasts. I was just, because it was like, it's just sort of taking me back, and I just didn't really listen to any podcasts or anything for the sort of like a year. And then I started creeping back in when Nostalgia Bait started. I listened to Nostalgia, and I've got to say that one of the reasons you're here as well is I wanted to bring you in because Nostalgia Bait is a massive reason as to why Who Knew is now back, because
I really appreciate
it sort of rekindled my love for podcasts. Like,
it's really nice of
people
you to
are
say,
great.
and I don't I don't want to take any credit at all for that. This is all like
Take
you,
that
and
credit.
I'm
Take my credit.
But thank you. That really means a lot.
Yeah, no, well, it was like I was listening to Nostalgia Bait. I was listening to the Who Watch podcast with Beth, who's a friend of the show, and Dave, who unfortunately hasn't been on the show yet, but you know, hopefully at some point in the future. And then Miles Taylor and Ben, who are doing Knowing Who as well. I started listening to that, and I was just sort of sat, like, if you'd have said to me like June, July, oh, you're going to be doing Who Knew again in a couple of months, I was like, no fucking chance.
Yeah.
No chance. I was not ready. And then literally just sort of clicked one day. I was listening to Nostalgia Bait, and I was just like, oh, maybe I'm ready. Yeah. Maybe I could do this just as a hobby again, make it fun, and not put the pressure on. And if it gets to that point again, I will end it again. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, I guarantee you're going to get episodes for years and years and years. I don't know. And I don't know how long this is. I mean, I may only do 10 more. Who knows? We'll see how we go. I'm changing things to make it better for me, to make it less stressful, so that there are tweaks to it. You'll notice that there's no video. Because sort of video editing with like face cams and stuff just adds more work. It adds more work syncing up the audios, like editing it out, making sure that any like bits that have corrupted are sorted out. I don't need to do it, so I'm stripping it back. So it's still going to be on YouTube, but it's just going to be like a waveform or something. I haven't figured that out yet, but there's still going to be visuals and stuff for it to go on YouTube. But I'm changing that, and also you'll notice that the schedule's changed. It's now, even though I'm doing this one, and then you've got a new episode in a few days' time. From then, it's fortnightly. I'm not doing weekly podcasts,
and I think that's great. This is what I'm saying.
I can't keep it
on
up.
behalf of. Like any sort of listeners out there, I would like to say I would happily take, 5 more episodes where you're genuinely enjoying it and loving it and enjoying the process than 50 episodes where you fucking hate it. That's the balance for me. It's like it's what it should be about. If you love it and you enjoy doing it, doesn't matter whether we get 3 more episodes, and that's it. Like, it's content, and it is such a great show, and it's something that, again, I will not stop talking about how like delighted I am to be here for this. But like, it is,
thank you,
truly a great show, and something that I've enjoyed listening to over the years. I'm so excited to listen to again. But again, if it lasts another 3 episodes, if it lasts another 30, is it 300? Doesn't matter. It's got to be with where you're happy, and the fact that you're in a place now where you feel that creatively you're ready to bring it back is exciting. Not just exciting because we're getting more episodes of You Knew, exciting because you're at a point where you're like, I can enjoy this again. And as a mate, that is really nice to hear.
Thank you, that's really nice. And it's like, I just feel like I am in a much better place mentally to have like, I've still got issues to deal with like everybody does, and that's sort of why I wanted to do this episode, because I think it's good to talk about this kind of stuff and be open about it. and sort of normalize it. And there's going to be other creators, hopefully, who listen to this and have gone through the same thing or are going through similar things. And it's okay to stop. If you need to stop, it's fine. I've done it and I've come back and it's fine. And it's like, I might lose a few listeners. The algorithm might not like me at first. It might take a while to build it back up. And, it's not all about the listens, but if I want people to listen to it, it's that thing where it's like, I don't want it to consume me, but it's like, I want it to do well. But I've just got a much healthier relationship with it now, where I feel like if I need to take another 6-month break, I'll do it. I don't care. I don't care about the algorithms and stuff. I don't care anymore. If I need to do it, I'll do it. And if I need to stop it, then I will. Or if I can just carry on, then I'll do it. And I can just take a week off here and there and not feel the pressure. So I feel in a much better place to be able to do that and have the confidence that, it's not going to impact anything in my life really that's that important. So if I take a week off, who
gives a shit? It's fine.
Exactly.
You just do it. You do what makes you happy, and you do this show to whatever you want to do and whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be a pressure. And it's a really, really great. And I think it's such a nice thing and an amazing thing for you to also feel comfortable enough to talk about this and open up on a podcast to discuss this, because there'll be a lot of people, a lot of fellow content creators out there. Like, I've gone through my struggles. I've never really talked about it. But I think, like, as a content creator, it is tricky sometimes to navigate those feelings and not to get addicted. And I think hearing this is so incredible and so, like, I think brave as well to open up about it, and I think is comforting, not just to me, but I'm sure to other content creators who are listening to this, who may also have felt burnt out with the stuff they make, and it is a comfort to hear that, like, someone else is kind of feeling the same way as you. You're not alone in that fact, and there's always, like, you can always come out the other side of it. You did the right thing at the right time, stopping it. And I think you're doing the right thing now, bringing it back when you feel ready to do it. And that is
I think brilliant. That's right. And I do hope that other people, I don't think it's going to change lives. It's a fucking podcast. But I hope that it helps people to realize that this is very normal. And it's taken me a long time to get to that conclusion. 18 fucking months, as you've all noticed, where there's been no episodes. But I mean, obviously everyone's been really nice about it coming back, and everyone's been like, seeing some of the old regulars who pop up in my mentions and stuff, people who were always in that little group of, like, core fans who are there week in, week out for an episode, has been lovely. Nice. And chatting to people again, and This is the first proper recording that I've done back, but we've got more episodes I've already announced. Obviously the Dan Starkey episode, that's going to be next. That's going to be coming out probably the Tuesday after this one. So in a few days' time, you'll have a new episode of Who Knew, that you've got a young whippersnapper Josh from a year and a half ago, before he had his little mentee bee. And a great episode of Dan Starkey. It was really, really fun. And then you've got Troy, Red Archer Live, coming in, and then I've got some other guests coming too.
Like a little bit of a teaser there. It's good.
Hopefully some sort of a Christmas special as well. I'm in the works of a festive extravaganza.
Love
them,
that.
so
we'll
figure something out, and maybe something on Joy to the World as well.
Yeah,
but we'll see. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I have got some exciting guests lined up, and I'm going to keep trying to get some more exciting guests.
I'm so excited for that. It's going to be great. I think there's a bright future here, and I'm again just more than delighted, not only that we get more episodes, but that you're happy and you're ready and you're fucking enthusiastic, and that's such a nice thing to see. I think it's a great time.
Next week I'll be fucking sick of it. I'll be sick of it. Once I'm halfway through editing this, and I'll go, oh, you know what?
Can't be arsed with it, yeah. I think it's a great place to take a little break. And when we come back, we're going to be doing some fun stuff. We're going to be talking about the DVD collection segment.
It's the features.
We're going to be answering some questions from bloody Twitter/X/Blue Sky.
Oh, don't get me started on that. We're going to have to come up with a new name, and I don't want to.
And we'll be also delving into the Corridor of Fame. What an exciting experience for the host to finally be put in the chair to give us those answers.
Put that clip of Capaldi in The Husbands of River Song where he goes, "Finally, it's my turn. This is my turn. I get to put it's my little baby, and I get to put things in the corridor of the DVD collection. I'm excited."
Okay, well, we'll see you all in just a minute. And welcome back after your lovely little break there. We're still here with Josh. He hasn't ran off just yet. And given the podcast...
Have you all missed that jazzy little Doctor Who theme tune?
I've missed it. I've bloody missed it, man. That's a throwback.
Yeah, it's nice to hear it again and not want to go insane after hearing it a million times.
Yeah.
But wonderful work by the Sononauts there.
Oh,
it's like a radio show now.
Get it, yeah, man. It's like being on a radio show. I love this.
That was the Doctor Who theme tune by the Sononauts. That's for all you lovers out there.
Hey, man, that's the future. Get it on the radio. We're going to start by going into one of, I was going to say our segments. It's not my segment. One of your segments here.
It is today.
It is, I suppose.
Today.
Okay.
It's yours, mate.
One of my segments that I like to press guests with. You have asked this to so many other people. You've asked this to me. But you've never got an opportunity yet to sit in the chair and answer these sort of little segments and give your thoughts on them. So we're going to just jump right into the first one. You are so good at like making these sort of smooth. So I'm just kind of waffling.
I'm not good at making these smooth at all.
Oh, I'm just picturing this room. You walk in, it's just wall to wall.
My DVD collection.
It's like that, but it's.
I've just said the name.
You fucking.
There you go.
Dear.
Shit. Go on, you go. No, if I'll cut
wall
that out.
To wall,
I'll cut
wall
that out.
to wall with DVDs. Some Blu-rays in there, some 4Ks.
Maybe some VHS.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe a telesnap reconstruction here or there.
A couple of old rusty PS2 discs. Just a gorgeous thing. This
Video Now disc.
Yeah.
Video Now. Does anyone remember that?
I don't remember that. What the fuck is that?
Little portable, tiny little DVDs. Fucking hell, Josh. Shut up. Sorry. Go on. Do your intro. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm seeing wall-to-wall Doctor Who episodes. The iconic roundels of every little DVD spine echoing across the wall as if it was its own TARDIS. This is, of course, the DVD collection.
By the power of Grayskull.
The Unicorn and the Wasp, or Love and Monsters?
Which one do you think I prefer? No, I mean, which one do you want to watch first? You are pulling my leg.
And at risk of not getting the segment exactly right, introduce any new listeners to what this segment might be. Josh, take it away. What are you going to be telling us?
Let's see how smoothly I can do this. So, every episode of Who Knew, I take my lovely guests to the DVD collection where they can submit a story to enter almost like a hall of fame of Doctor Who, of quintessential Doctor Who episodes, something that means a lot to them, something that, you know, there's many people put many different episodes in here for different reasons, but, you know, there's episodes from all across the many eras of Doctor Who, apart from Colin Baker. I feel so terrible that we've done nearly 50 episodes and Colin still doesn't have a story in here, so someone please put a Colin story in.
You got a chance.
I'm not doing it myself, so you know. So yeah, there's copious amounts of stories. City of Death is in here, Genesis of the Daleks, classics. The pinnacle of great Doctor Who episodes like Love and Monsters are in the DVD collection, you know. And finally, I get a chance. Yeah, I have put one episode in before, but it's just because Katie Manning didn't. So I put Terror of the Autons in there. because it's her first episode.
Fair enough, yeah.
But this is my first proper pick. My first proper pick, and I'm so excited. And I was terrified because I just couldn't fucking decide. It was so hard. And I had like a list of like 40 odd episodes that I could have put in there. So I drew up some criteria to try and narrow it down. And I was like, okay, I want an episode that's got some sentimental value to me due to like maybe the timing that it aired or something. I want an episode that is genuinely great, like an all-timer, one of my favourite episodes, something that is quintessential Doctor Who as well, and also something that I know that me and George would have a fucking great time having a chin with.
Okay. I'm fascinated.
So, I've actually picked an episode that didn't exist yet when Who Knew was last broadcast. I've picked a very new episode. It's a sort of a new Doctor going in from number 14, because we're very close to the anniversary again, and I thought I'd celebrate by putting Wild Blue Yonder in the DVD
Josh, I could fucking kiss
I
you.
knew you'd love that.
I'm happy with that. I agree with that shit any day.
Yeah,
Tell me about Wild Blue Yonder.
I there were so many episodes that are sentimental to me, going back years, like Human Nature, Family of Blood. It's one of my favourites. And, you know, going back to the classic Who, there's so many stories that I would have loved. But I just bloody love Wild Blue Yonder. And I've rewatched it a couple of times, and it's an absolute stone cold classic. I think it's the best of this new era by far. I think it's just everything an episode of Doctor Who should be in terms of just scares, laughs, emotion. It's got a bit of everything in there.
Yeah.
It's new, which is nice. You know, it's nice to have an episode that is not ingrained in my memory as much, so that I still get those little shocks when I watch it, and I'm like, oh God, I forgot about that bit. Because I can't recite it from memory. And again, it's one I know that you love as well. So I was like, let's put one in for both of us.
Yeah.
We're both here. We're both hosting. Let's stick in for this is basically Josh and George's pick.
It's a phenomenal episode, isn't it?
It
It is really, really good.
Yeah. And it does hold a little bit of sentimental value for me as well, because obviously it aired last year, and I watched this. I had a very strange watch experience of this because it aired while I was on a flight to New York. So I'd been awake for a very long time when I got to our Airbnb, basically, and was sat in this room in New York and having a fantastic time, but it was about sort of like midnight, and I was absolutely knackered, but obviously I had to watch Doctor Who there and then, because obviously the whole thing about Wild Blue Yonder as well is that we didn't really know what kind of an episode it was going to be, and I think that makes it so much better. We thought, I had an inkling that it was going to be what it was, which is not the fan service crazy multi-Doctor fest that everybody thought it was going to be. I think people sort of let their imaginations get the better of them. But I found that really exciting, because I was like, I think people are going to be so, for the first time, maybe even for the first time since, this might be like the least we've known going into an episode of Doctor Who since An Unearthly Child.
It's
like,
been, it was
absolutely nuts.
They didn't tell us anything, basically.
Yeah, we knew nothing about it. We had like a few clips here and there, and I was like, I don't think. I mean, it could be. I was like, it could be. That's the exciting thing. It could be Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi are back and blah, 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 blah. But I was like, if this is just a standard scary horror thriller episode of Doctor Who that does some weird shit, I'd be so up for that. And it was exactly that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the reason why I mentioned New York is because it's got a little bit of sentimental value for me, because I was watching it with Jess and I found it quite hard to concentrate, because at that point I was under the impression that I was going to be proposing to Jess the next morning. So I didn't. We had to delay it a day, but it was sort of the last episode of Doctor Who that aired before I proposed to Jess in New York. So when I was watching the episode, I was very much enjoying it, but I was also shitting myself because I was like, tomorrow is one of the biggest days of my life, possibly, even though it ended up not being that. But we had to push it back a day because of weather, fucking rain. But I was watching it thinking that one of the biggest events of my life is about to happen, and I should probably go and get some sleep. But I'm here at 1 o'clock in the morning watching a David Tennant drag his giant fucking hands around in the middle of New York, and it was just a very surreal experience. I love that though. To watch.
I watched it at like 2 a.m. as well. I was out that night and came back and had to avoid everything and sat and I watched it. I made the decision to watch it on a projector in my room in bed.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, I got an old projector out of the cupboard, just stuck it on. I thought, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to do it like this. And I just was absolutely in awe when I first saw it. The lack of knowledge going in obviously is incredible, but I love a thriller. I love something that feels claustrophobic and weird. They're like almost the music was very just out there, and it's just phenomenal TV. I really, really love it. Look, it has its flaws. I think some of the visuals are a little bit where for 2023, but it is it's very good. And I keep going back to it and I keep thinking, what an episode that was. That was incredible.
Yeah, it's really, really fresh for me. That's why I sort of picked it. And I just think it was so exciting going in knowing nothing.
Yeah.
And it's just 2 fucking powerhouse performances as well. Twice over from David and Catherine.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You've got those 2 incredible performances. Like, I always like pinpointing sort of moments in episodes that stand out. And that bit where they're cutting back and forth, you've got David doing sort of the monologue about the TARDIS, and Donna's just sort of there in the background, and you've got this sort of weird dread building in the background.
Yeah.
Until you hear, obviously, like Donna hears the Doctor shout from the other room while he's sat there in front. And then you rewatch that scene. That's a scene that works on so many levels, because then you rewatch it and everything feels so much more sinister the second time you watch it.
Exactly, yeah.
Because it's like you didn't really notice it the first time around.
Yeah.
Like some of the things
it's a bit odd, but you're
that,
sort of like,
like the Doctor says, where he's like, "Oh yeah, I can't wait to see him again." Like talking about Wilf.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't wait. And it just feels so much more sinister the second time.
Yeah.
So it really holds up after repeat viewings. And then, it does some really interesting stuff with like referencing the Flux and old episodes. And
it's very clever in the way it does that. And I love that scene. And I've got to know that episode incredibly well very recently for a project I'm working on. But it's really analysing those scenes.
Exciting.
Yeah, possibly. But it's very cool to like really analyse those scenes and really look at them and go, wow, this is good. Like this is good.
Unbelievable.
This is great. And everything about it just is fantastic. I think I've waffled so much about how much I love it that I feel like I'm not going to really add anything new. But it's powerhouse performances. It's a creepy atmosphere. The visuals are great for the most part. Tennant and Tate are absolutely on form in terms of continuity. The stuff with Flux is incredible from a character perspective. It really gives 14 quite a lot of things to sort of chew on. They could very easily have disconnected it from the previous era, like every other showrunner has. But Russell intended to keep that there, to keep that Flux story there as a big part of 2 out of 3 of the specials, which is very, very brave and works tremendously, I think. It's a fair play. I think absolutely deserving of having a place in the DVD collection, and an episode that I adore as much as you probably do. I just love that. I didn't know that story about your circumstances watching it, so it's such a heartwarming and perfectly sentimental episode in that case to put in.
That's what I was like. It's got a little bit of that, because I was like, there's so many sentimental episodes of Doctor Who for me, but it was just like watching that and knowing like, watching the next time for the giggle and being like, oh, when I watch the giggle, I'm gonna be engaged. I'm gonna be getting married.
Yeah.
Like that if she says yes,
Yeah.
which she did. You know, it was a great, really weird, great, memorable watching experience. And then you've also got the little Wilf bit at the end, which is just really lovely to
cherry on
have
the
that
cake,
return of Bernard Cribbin's last performance as Wilf.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, it's just one of those episodes. I've also seen loads of like really cool readings of it, like people saying that it's, you know, it's sort of like, because you can watch it without the readings and it's still great, but then like you watch it through the lens of, oh, this is sort of meta commentary on like David coming back and like facing his old self, and you know, you've got meta commentary on like AI and generative AI and these knocked things that are sort of not real people.
There's a lot of readings you can do into
echoes of people. Yeah,
that only makes it better.
It's a really interesting episode.
Yeah,
and I just thought it was nice to come back to Who Knew and celebrate something that's happened in between.
Yeah.
It's
brilliant.
I remember, I'm pretty sure the last episode of Who Knew was me and Matt from Full Fat Videos talking about our theories and what we thought was going to happen in the 60th. So it's going to be quite jarring going from that to then the next episode is me a year after that 60th anniversary special aired, putting it in the DVD collection. But I just thought it'd be nice to celebrate what has been, even if
it's a great idea. I wouldn't have even.
We've all got our opinions on what's happened in the past year, like the series and stuff, and you know, none of it's flawless in my opinion, but Wobbly Yonder is the closest thing to flawless I think we've had in a long time.
Absolutely,
for
I'm fully in agreement. I think it's a brilliant episode. It's not completely perfect, but it's something that is absolutely stands out to me as one of the ones that I will continue to revisit and continue to love pretty much unconditionally.
Just a wild thing to do for an anniversary special as well. And absolutely insane, like how it just shows the faith that the BBC must have in a writer like Russell T Davies to just agree to go along with an episode like that for a 60th.
Everything in media at the minute is all about legacy sequels and doing things and cameos and stuff like that, and I really respect the even though it's got Tennant and Tate back, it does something intelligent with it. It doesn't waste time bringing back Matt Smith and
does
Jake
not
Capaldi
do
when it doesn't need to, and I think that's what's great.
Everyone had their theories about what it was going to be, and it was none of those, which was fantastic.
And I love that.
It was really, really great.
But yeah, I said, what a fantastic inclusion for the DVD collection. A great one.
So it's in,
I know, that must
I've
feel
got some
good.
dusting to do in the DVD collection. I've got, you know, it's not been touched for a long time.
Yeah, getting a spring cleaning out, but...
Yeah, no, very, very happy to put Wobbly Yonder in there.
Yeah.
And very excited to see what other people decide to put in there
in the future
as we go forward with Who Knew.
That's so exciting.
Don't worry, I'm not changing things that much. I had considered, is it time for a change? Do we put the DVD collection in the Corridor of Fame to bed?
No.
But I'm like, nah, let's keep it in. They're fun.
Let's keep it.
Let's keep it. Yeah.
We're talking about things that sort of maybe haven't been dusted off in a while to something, a social media platform, which has been dusted quite frequently into something a lot fucking worse. We're talking about Twitter or X or Blue Sky, who knows? But this is a segment that we used to call Bloody Twitter, which is a great quote from Broadchurch, and I love that.
Yeah.
Very jealous.
There we go. Hang on,
myself.
David, take it away.
Go on, David.
For God's sake! Bloody Twitter!
There you go. Bloody Twitter.
Bloody Twitter.
Now, I have no idea what the fuck this is going to be called going forward if Twitter dies.
I think call it Bloody
it's
Twitter.
It wasn't called Twitter when I last had Who Knew. It was already X by then, I think.
Keep calling it Bloody Twitter. Go with it.
But now everyone's going on with it to Blue Sky, so I'm just gonna every
Bloody
episode.
Blue Sky doesn't work as well. You can still take questions from Blue Sky. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, we've got.
This is actually one of the first. This is the first time we have questions from Blue Sky, which is exciting.
That is exciting. Well, we've got a bunch of questions, which I'm gonna rattle through some of these really quickly. And some of them are probably a little bit more time to think about. We're just going to go through them all. So the first question is from Jack Alexander, who said, "Who is the tallest and most handsome man you've been on a panel with?"
Friend of the pod.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know what he's angling for there.
Yeah.
He's fishing for compliments.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a spanner in his works. It's obviously Paul McGann.
Lovely.
It's Paul McGann. He's fucking gorgeous.
He is.
He's
He
gorgeous.
is a gorgeous man.
Sorry, Jack.
Um,
You are definitely one of the tallest people I've been on a panel with. But none of us can hold a candle to Paul McGann, and that's fine. You've got to stare perfection in the face and realise I'm not going to be that. That's okay. Paul McGann is a lovely, lovely looking man.
I love that. From one tall height-related question to yet another from Jude at Pig and Tea Break, another friend of the pod. How tall canonically is Billy Rowe?
4'6". Absolute maximum 4'6". This is birthed from this is birthed from the fact that Jude is just another horrifically tall person in the Doctor Who community. I believe you're quite tall, aren't
I'm
you?
6'4".
We've never met in real life. Fuck you. So you're 6'4". I've got Richard.
Yeah.
Clever Dick Films.
Yeah.
Richard, also very tall.
Mm-hmm.
I've got Jude. I was stood with Jude and Richard at the Doctor Who proms, which was very exciting. I looked like their fucking child, and I'm a normal sized man. I am 6 foot 5'11". I'm 5'11", 6 foot. Let's just say I'm 6 foot.
Sure.
With the hair, I'm 6 foot. I'm definitely 5'11", but I'm a normal sized man. But around you lot, I look like a fucking child because I've got stumpy little legs. And I look like a Sontaran, and I hate it. So, Jude, I am shaving at least 1.5 foot off you, canonically, because obviously Jude plays Billy Rowe in my upcoming fan audio series, The Peculiar Adventures of Doctor Who. And yeah, he's 4'7". I've decided.
I like to think that some of the...
Put it on the TARDIS wiki.
I like to think a lot of the taller people in the Doctor Who community, myself included, should come together to do a little, I don't know, like a barbershop quartet and call ourselves the Singing Towers.
Nice. Nice.
We've got a question from Alfie. Favourite type of warp?
This is another Peculiar Adventures linked question. This is because Alfie has started a little trend within the many writers of the Peculiar Adventures, because Alfie's writing episode 3. No, wrong. Episode 2.
Yeah.
Disorder in the Valley of the Kings. Very exciting. And Alfie has a tendency to categorize the TARDIS's warps, and I love it. I've started doing it. Other writers have started doing it. So I would say, idea. Alfie, my favorite is your original stage direction, which started this, which is sassy warp.
Love that. That's such a great one.
Love a sassy warp. There's a few. There's a pissed off warp. I think I put a pissed off warp in there at one point. But yeah, sassy. I love sassy warp.
I love that very much.
You can just hear it, can't you? You can hear the TARDIS doing a sassy warp.
I can hear
and
that.
I just love that. The TARDIS is a character in and of her own right. So yeah.
We've got a question from Oscar Grouchos. What lessons would 2024 Josh impart on his pre-pandemic counterpart at the start of their extended Doctor Who fandom journey? That's a good question.
Invest in Zoom.
That's a great question. That's a great question. That's a great answer, even. Yeah, it's so good.
I would say, obviously, I'd probably shown this podcast and say, don't do any of that stuff. Don't get obsessed. If it's not fun anymore, stop.
Yeah.
Which I did, and it worked. So maybe I didn't need to give myself that advice. And make sure your fucking recordings don't corrupt, Josh, because that's happened too many times. Especially with George.
Oh, well, yeah, but, true, yeah.
Yeah.
Check
your recordings, invest in a little bit. Don't need the best equipment to start a podcast, but invest in something a little bit better than an iPhone with GarageBand at the start, you know? Put a bit of oomph into it if you're going to do it, Josh.
I love that. We've got...
Don't edit your podcasts on your iPhone on GarageBand, because it will be hard.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot easier if you have Adobe.
Yeah.
You know, just where we're at now.
We have a couple of questions from Ben at Real Enthusiast. The first of which I love this. Josh, you are always respectful and courteous when discussing episodes with people, no matter your own opinion on them. But I want to know, is there a particular episode you'd genuinely struggle to say nice things about if a guest added it to the Who News DVD collection?
Okay, I do have an answer to this
Mm-hmm.
because it's happened.
Yeah, that's what
Sam Davis, you know who you are. We've spoken about this before. You come in here and putting the fucking caretaker in.
Huh?
Yeah,
He
thought.
That's...
I think this is classic Sam. Sam thought it would spark some fun debate. Didn't. We just did. I just didn't know what to say. I was just like, I just did not expect the caretaker because I genuinely, something people might not know, I genuinely don't know most of the time what people are putting in because I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I make sure people don't tell me what they're putting in the DVD collection in the Corridor of Fame. So when I find out on the recording, that is 99% of the time a genuine reaction.
Oh my God.
And if you listen to my episode with Sam Davis and listen to my genuine reaction, you can tell I have no idea what to say. But yeah, no, I think the whole point of the DVD collection is that any episode can be someone's favourite.
Exactly.
But Sam threw a spanner in the works because he doesn't like the caretaker.
Right. He doesn't even like it.
No, of course he doesn't.
That's terrible.
And also, the writer is a
prick.
Is now an arsehole.
Yes.
And I assume has always been an arsehole. Yeah, that one was a struggle. Thanks, Sam. Love you, babe. And I'm sure there's ones that I always try and be nice because, again, every episode is someone's favourite.
Mm-hmm.
But also every episode is someone's least favourite. And, we all have our least favourite episodes. I probably struggle with the Web Planet because I think it's on what... Has anyone put the Web Planet in? I can't remember. I don't know if they have off the top of my head, but I'd probably struggle with that one because it's, as much as it has its good elements, I think it's genuinely one of the only episodes of Doctor Who that is borderline unwatchable. It's just the noise. It's just noise. It's just noise, and it looks awful, and it sounds terrible, and it's just like the worst experience as a neurodivergent person is watching the Web Planet. Pretty much, it's just a horrible experience. It's just overwhelming.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the only way I can describe it. But it's got its fans. Fair enough.
I love that.
And everyone likes some of it. With Doctor Who.
I love that.
So I think I'd always find something to say, whether that is good or bad.
Ben's also asked if you could host a Comic-Con panel for a TV show that wasn't Doctor Who, which one would you pick, and who would you like to interview on the panel?
That is a great question. It's a very good question. There are other TV shows. Some of my other favourite TV shows. I'd love. Breaking Bad would be good. Like
Breaking Bad's good.
Vince Gilligan, Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul talk about the creative process of making basically the best.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Drop my water bottle, sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, Breaking Bad would be good. One, because I think it'd be really funny, and they have started doing Comic-Con, so maybe I've got to check out a couple of emails and hope. Yeah. Would be Ghosts. BBC Ghosts is one of my favourite comedies
class,
ever.
Yeah.
And they're a great ensemble.
Yeah.
And I think that it'd be a right laugh talking about that, and I bet they've got some great stories about making it. So yeah, that's an option. I'm watching The Sopranos at the minute.
Yeah,
Fucking
my brother's
great.
watching The
Maybe
Sopranos.
there
I
may be
haven't
a
started
Sopran-
watching it yet, but I'd like to give it a
It's
shot.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was this close to pivoting to a Sopranos podcast, to be honest. Oh no! I can't believe- No, Josh, stop it.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, one of them maybe, or maybe just I'd love to do a podcast, not a panel, a podcast about. Like, I love it when it's like one person who's like a big fan of a show, and someone else who's never seen a show, and it's them sort of go there. I love podcasts like that. So maybe something like that with like Star Trek or something. 'Cause I've never seen any of it.
Yeah.
it's just a big blank spot for me. So something like that would be fun. But if it was a panel with other people, yeah, I think Ghosts or there's loads of TV shows.
Yeah. I don't even know how I'd answer that. It's a good one though. I think Ghosts and
a
Breaking
great
Bad
question.
are both really, really great shouts.
Yeah.
We've got a question from Richard, Clever Dick Films. Is there any area of the expanded...
Another friend of the pod.
Yeah.
Too tall, but friend of the pod.
One of the singing towers.
Yeah.
Is there any area of the expanded universe of Doctor Who that you'd really like to explore but haven't yet had the opportunity?
Yeah, there's quite a bit, to be honest. I've listened to quite a lot of Big Finish, but there's loads of areas of Big Finish that I haven't touched. Like, there's a lot of the McGann stuff.
Yeah.
I've done some of the early McGann stuff, but there's a lot of the McGann stuff that like Dark Eyes and Ravenous and Stranded that I've never touched. That I'd quite like to do. Comics, I wish I had a bit more patience for reading comics, but I just don't have the attention span for it. And I've heard there's some amazing Doctor Who comics, and I have read some, and they've been great. I've read some of the Jodie ones. So comics I'd like to expand into a little bit more. But in terms of TV, I've now completed everything as of a couple of months ago. I'm pretty sure I've now done every TV episode of Classic and New and every Telesnap reconstruction.
Wow.
I've watched every episode of Sarah Jane. That was the last thing that I needed to finish because I hadn't finished the last series of Sarah Jane. I've watched every episode of Torchwood. So I think I'm like all polished with TV. So now is my time. I do want to read more books as well. I want to read more Doctor Who books, and I am trying to make my way through Targets because they're nice, easy reads, and but read some more like original Who books because I read Touched by an Angel. I read while I was on holiday, which is an 11th Doctor Weeping Angel story. That is one of the best Doctor Who stories I've ever experienced in my life. It is a unadulterated 10 out of 10. I would recommend it to anyone. So yeah, if anyone wants to recommend me any more Doctor Who books, I've got a shelf full here that I've not read. I've just got shitloads of Doctor Who books that I just never got around to reading. I just pick them up and then I never read them. So I'm trying actively to read more because I've got a terrible attention span. Books take me ages to read. These people who can like polish a target off in a day.
Yeah. No, me neither. Not a chance. I love that we've got so many Target novels for the new series as well, and so many like audio.
I'm working my way through them.
Audio versions of it as well.
I've read all the 60th ones. The Giggle. The Giggle Target novelization is one of the best books going.
Really? Okay.
The Day of the Doctor one is
that's
possibly my favourite book of all time. And I'd say The Giggle takes a lot of cues from that in terms of how it presents it. It's very fun. It has a lot of fun with the format of a book. Yeah. And it's like messes with you a little bit.
I like that.
Sends you back to different chapters and different pages. And it's like sort of like a choose your own adventure section.
I like that.
And it's great.
I like that.
And like obviously messes with the perception of who you're narrating, who's narrating the story at what different points. So The Giggle one is genuinely fantastic. And really enjoyed the Church on Ruby Road one. I've enjoyed them all. But yeah, I need to read sort of the new shooty ones. From like Space Babies onwards. I've got those, but I need to read them. So yeah.
It's a good shout. I'll be interested to see if any of them expand like massively on them. But
I think that's maybe one of the problems with doing them so soon after the series is that you're not sort of leaving enough time to expand them.
Yeah.
And maybe you'd need to do another version later on down the line. But the Star Beast and the Giggle were really good at, especially at sort of doing new spins on it and expanding them pretty well. So yeah, I'm interested in seeing what they do with them.
I'm excited with that. I definitely want to get more into it. We've got a question from Cal, which is, how cool is Cal? And how did you possibly manage to get such a hard-working promoter for the series?
Cal is when I said before that it's lovely seeing some of the OGs back. Yeah. Cal is like the OG, the hype person for Who Knew. Cal's been here since day one, and they've always They've always hyped the podcast up. They've always been in the bloody Twitter section asking great questions like this. So Cal is very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cal.
And following up on an actual serious question, what would you say was the point where you realized that the podcast was actually something genuinely viable as more than just a concept? It's a good question. I feel I'm kind of like brushed on that, but it's a great question.
Yeah, no, I can pinpoint an actual moment, and I've actually brought a prop.
Oh my god!
But then I've remembered that we're not doing video podcasts, so pointless for everybody at home. But I have brought an actual prop to show George.
Oh, fantastic! I'm excited.
Which
about
is
that.
a little piece of Who Knew history. I'd say that the moment where I realised was not down to me; it was down to Jess, my wonderful fiance. I don't know why I said it like that.
That's classic.
Fiance. She was very much encouraging me to do the podcast and trying to get me to sort of take the plunge and do it. And I was planning it, and I was like, "Ooh, do I do it or do I not?" I don't know. This is like 4 years ago, and then I'd made the logo, and I was like, "Ooh, I think I could do this." Jess came home one day and gave me a package, and the package contained this. Which is the very first Who Knew mug, which I don't know if you can see, George, isn't even really what the logo looks like anymore. It's a lot more saturated.
Yeah.
And it's got a little weird bit at the bottom that says the Doctor Who podcast, and it's got a different background. So this is the first ever draft of the Who Knew logo. And then I sort of tweaked it from there. And Jess basically gave me this and said, "Well, you got to fucking do it now. You've made a logo, and I put it on a mug. So I've paid actual money to put this on a mug. So you now have to do this to make this mug worthwhile." And I was like, "All right."
Yeah.
So I just did it. So
Excellent.
I will
Love that.
I will always cherish this mug as the thing that basically changed my life.
I love that
in a lovely way.
That's fun.
So yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I'll post a picture of it on the Twitter. I'm sure people have seen it before. I used to drink out of it for ages, and then and then it sort of got relegated to just being on my shelf for a bit. But it's still here. I still love it.
I love that.
It just bothers me that it's the old logo. I don't want it in videos.
So the curse of being a
neurodivergent brain.
Yeah, I feel like I've done that as well with the Nostalgia Bait logo. Is like going back and going,
"Oh, you've got lovely cups now, haven't you?"
Yeah, and I had to make a new logo for the cups because I knew I'd eventually make a new logo. So I had to make one early to then get it on a cup so it wasn't old by the time the new logo came around. Yeah, that was fun.
You should sell those. I want a cup. I'll drink from a Nostalgia Boat cup on Who Knew.
I love that. This free promotion is great. And the final question we've got is from Davis.
Thanks for the caretaker, Sam.
Yeah.
Again.
With another kind of chaotic energy kind of question to go along with that.
He's just trying to fucking derail this podcast.
I love it.
Thanks, Sam.
I love it. He says, "It's time to burn a bridge. Who is somebody you don't think would be a good guest match for the podcast?"
Oh, I wanted to put it in, but now I've come to it. Let's try and come up with as diplomatic an answer as possible.
I'll be a politician about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think I've never had anyone really who said anything horrible or anything about the podcast, like coming on or anything. Everyone has been surprisingly very nice. There are obviously problematic people that I wouldn't want on the podcast. I mean, you put John Barrowman in the corridor of fame. He's not coming on it.
Oh,
so,
did I actually?
You did. It was before the allegations. Don't worry. You didn't know. He's been quietly removed. He's not in there anymore.
Thank
Don't
God.
worry.
That's so
Maybe
funny.
one day
I forgot about
I'll give
that.
you a chance to. It's fine. So someone like him, obviously, he's not coming on. And a Gareth Roberts, they're not people that I want on. I've had people before who were very much at the start of the podcast.
Yeah.
I had a lot of arguments with Not My Doctors and
As
sort of side of
stuff.
Twitter, and got that all out of the way nice and early. But they were like, "Well, let's get on your podcast and have a nice discussion." I'm like, "Well, no, it's not what the podcast is for." Yeah, especially right at the beginning, I was like, I don't want to set up this podcast as I'm fucking going on and debating right-wing grifters.
Yeah.
Because it just wasn't what the podcast was
No,
for. It
it's
was
not.
about
Yeah.
not being toxically positive or anything, but I just didn't want it to be that sort of negative
of course.
shit
You don't
side
want
of
it to be
Twitter.
that.
I wanted it to be
You don't
an
want it to be that
escape
at
from
all.
that.
Yeah.
So I do try and vet people a little bit to make sure that things like that aren't going to pop up, because no one wants to hear it. No, I don't want it. It's not what the podcast is for. It's not what it represents. I want it to be a podcast that's for everybody. And I have no real interest in having people on who aren't interested in everybody being involved.
Yeah.
And I think I've been good at getting a diverse range of different people from different backgrounds and different personalities and different sexualities. You know, I want people to have a platform to tell their stories. You know,
I love that.
And share their experiences. That's what the podcast is all about. Who wouldn't be a good guest?
You've named quite a few, I think, anyway.
Yeah. There's the one thing as well that I would say is there's people that I think I'd be too scared to interview because they're a bit too big. I think I've said this before. Someone like Christopher Eccleston.
I was just going to say that.
I'd love to interview Christopher Eccleston, and I've heard he's lovely. I just think from a personal point of view,
though.
He's my doctor as well, and I think I'd be so terrified, and I wouldn't want to be that person to Christopher Eccleston. I wouldn't want to be that guy who asked him an awkward question by accident on a podcast.
I'm with you. I'm completely with you.
I'm happy to not know him and him just not know me.
Yeah.
Rather than him have a bad opinion of me.
I'm completely with you.
Maybe that's the kind of guest that I would avoid.
I love Eccleston, but he like every time I've seen him interviewed, I'll be like, I couldn't be in the interview seat because he is insanely intense. And I feel like I understand why it is.
People who have interviewed him.
Yeah,
I've spoken to people who have interviewed him, and apparently he's an absolute joy, and he's so lovely. And so maybe it'd be okay.
Maybe it'd be fine.
I just think,
from
my point of view,
I'd be terrified.
It'd be too big of a deal for me to be able to cope with it.
Yeah, I'd be terrified of that as well.
I'm happy to not do it. I've interviewed other doctors, and I'm happy with that. But Chris is just another level for me. Like, it's like this man changed my life. Like, it's just he's more than just like an idol to me. He's like, my life would be a completely different trajectory if it wasn't for Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah.
So it terrifies me. So maybe that's your answer, Sam. I think I did that as diplomatically as I
think that was a
possibly
great answer, and I think it's a completely valid one as well. It makes complete sense.
And Sam Davis, he's never coming back on this fucking thing.
So that's all of our questions from Twitter. Some really great ones there. Thank you to everyone who sent questions in. Really great to see so many people with such great burning questions. And before we sort of conclude here, we do have another segment to kind of run through. Another see a segment that's now thrown off in my mind after realizing who I put in there.
Don't worry, you didn't know. You didn't know at the time.
Yeah,
it was simpler times before.
We're walking in and we're dusting off old frames, throwing a couple of frames in the bin of these phenomenal people involved in the history of Doctor Who. People who have made their staple. That's not a word, is it, George? 2 hours.
You're doing really well. You're doing really, really well.
People who've made their mark on the history of Doctor Who. People who deserve credit. This is, of course, the corridor of fame, an opportunity where any guest can come on and give us someone who they think is fundamentally the person to be praised, or just one of the many people to be praised in the worlds of Doctor Who.
Have you ever been limited by who you were before?
One day I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back.
Our lives are different to anybody else's. That's the exciting thing.
Sarah Jane?
Do I have the right?
For some people, small, beautiful events is what life is all about.
Nursery compared to us. 10 million years of absolute power. That's what it takes to make really
Every great decision creates ripples. Like a huge boulder dropped in a lake.
But it was a childish dream that made you a doctor.
dreamt you could no more. I'm not just the type. I'm the last of the type. It just disappears, doesn't it? Everything you are gone in a moment, like breath on a mirror.
I do what I do because it's right! Because it's decent! And above all, it's kind!
Love abides in the face of everything.
You've summed it up very well there, George.
Yeah, thank you very
I
much.
don't think I need to do anything else. Yeah,
Lovely.
it's like it. Basically, I just always say it's like a Hall of Fame, but for Doctor Who.
And I'm fascinated.
Yeah, you're familiar with a Hall of Fame. It's like a Doctor
It's
Who
like
Hall
that.
of Fame.
Exactly.
I made it a corridor because it's all about running down corridors.
It's good.
That's the whole point. So
Genius.
yeah, and there's some fantastic names in here,
Mhm.
and it's not just what I like about it is that it's not always just people who are involved in the show.
Yeah.
As a given, just as the ground rules, all of the Doctors are in.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, since David's in here twice now, and Shooty's in as well. It's exciting.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it'll be ready by this point, but there will be a new updated intro for the Corridor of Fame that features 14 and 15. So don't worry.
Nice.
It is coming.
Nice.
It may just take a bit of time.
Yeah.
But it'll be here eventually.
Love that.
But yeah, it's just picking someone who is like, maybe it's someone who personally means something to you. We've had people put their own creative friends in here, like people that they've worked on the show with, or people that they've created things with, or people that have inspired them. This one was a bit easier, to be honest. I had a few options of people that I'd like to put in. And I thought, well, it'd be nice to put a guest, someone who's been on the podcast before in there. Would be nice, just as a way to honour them, and it also points people go and listen to the old episode because it's nice.
Yeah.
But there's an episode that I don't like picking favourites. I don't really have favourite episodes.
Sure. Yeah.
There's one that means a lot to me in particular that has always meant a lot to me because it really kickstarted me into knowing what I wanted to do in my life, which is, as much as I love the podcast, I'd love to be a writer. I'd love to write scripts and stories, and it sort of led me to The Peculiar Adventures of Doctor Who, which I'm working on, and writing my own things. And doing this episode was a real turning point for me because it was a massive get for me that they wanted to come on the podcast, and they were so generous with their time, and they were so incredible to talk to. And I've not, even though I've been at a couple of events with them since, I've not had the chance to thank them in person, but I will at some point. But the person that I want to put in is Rob Shearman, one of the greatest writers in the history of Doctor Who, in my opinion. There's not many people out there who don't sort of agree with me on that point. I think he's probably the most universally loved writer of Doctor Who, and for many years that was just because of Dalek, because obviously it's a phenomenal episode, and it was my first ever Dalek episode that I ever watched. So it was a massive, the Daleks are massive to me. I love Dalek episodes. I love Dalek stories. So getting to sit down and chat to Rob about what it was like to bring them back and to the point where they're now they were a cultural icon sort of in the 60s. Like they were this, there was Dalek mania and everything, but then they sort of became a joke. And the fact that in 45 minutes, 30 to 40 years of damage that have been done to the image of the Daleks in British pop culture, not just in the world of Doctor Who, in the pop culture of Britain, they were a joke. They were used for adverts and gags, and they were laughed at. And in 45 minutes, Rob Shearman, along with the rest of the people who worked on the episode, turned them into, once again, a second wind of the greatest villain in the history of British TV. So that's just a phenomenal achievement. And then 10, 15 years later, I get the chance to interview him because he's just released the Target novelisation of Dalek, which improves upon the episode. It's even better than the TV episode. If anyone's read it, it's fucking amazing. I've got it on the shelf behind me. And then you go to Big Finish and you listen to, I know that you've not done much Big Finish.
No, I'm not a big
George,
Big Finish
but
guy.
yeah, but I'd say Rob Shearman's Big Finish output is consistently the best of Big Finish. Chimes of Midnight is
I've heard that, yeah.
unbelievable. Probably the one Big Finish that everybody tells everybody to listen to because, you know, it's a lovely festive listen, but it's scary. It's just quintessential Doctor Who. It's phenomenal. The Holy Terror, some of the best Doctor Who I've ever listened to. Jubilee, which is obviously the Sixth Doctor story, which developed eventually into Dalek, sort of. It's sort of the origin stories of Dalek. And there's even more that I've not listened. I've never listened to Skirt to yet. I've got that on the list, which a lot of people tell me is incredible. But yeah, I just think, and I, like I said, going back to the episode that I did with him, it's sort of the one that I always recommend to people because even though the audio quality is not great, sorry about that. I just love the episode, and I'm not gonna lie, I had a little cry after we recorded that episode. It brought a tear to my eye, and I was just a bit overwhelmed that I was so lucky to be able to meet one of my heroes, one of my idols, someone who has inspired me to write, and then further inspired me to write from talking to them on that episode, and it's such a massive creative influence on me.
Yeah.
And like my style of writing humor and horror and scares and sci-fi is very much baked from Rob Shearman's work. And yeah, I was really, really emotional when I got to speak to him because even though Katie Manning was massive, this one was like, it was so personal to me and so exciting, and it was such a dream. He was as much as you were top of the list, Rob Shearman was right below it as dream guest. I just never imagined that I'd be able to speak to him, but yeah, and it just meant a lot to me. So even though I don't have favourites, it's probably the episode that if people ask me to like recommend an episode, I'd say listen to the Rob Shearman one because it just means a lot to me, and I loved it. And I'd love to speak to Rob again at some point, and maybe, you know, I like to keep things fresh and new and do new episodes, but if he ever wanted to come on here again, I'd never say no. Yeah. What a joy. What a man. What a writer.
Oh, I love it. What a gorgeous sentiment to such a brilliant creative mind. Yeah, I could not be in more support of that pick for Corridor of Fame. And again, I love that both of your picks there have been so incredibly personal, and it's so nice for you to be able to have that opportunity to now, you know, put your own choice in there and your own thoughts in there.
Yeah.
Really, really great.
Yeah. Before I give it back to you lot.
Yeah.
And the guests. Wonderful guests. And
then we'll end this on a sort of final note of something that's a broad question that's been asked times before, but in a sentence.
Christ. I hate this question.
In a sentence.
I mean, I love the question because I ask it every single episode, but I've always hated the fact that I knew that one day this day would come and I'd have to answer it. And I have no idea what I'm going to say.
Just
so,
spitball it.
Ask the question.
In a sentence, Josh, what does who mean to you?
What does Doctor Who mean to me? I'm going to be a bit wanky. I'm just going to say this today, days like today, where I get to sit with a mate, have a chat about Doctor Who, have a chat about creativity and joy and passion within the community. And I hope that, I think the question is very much linked to the podcast, because whatever Doctor Who means to me is what I've tried to make Who Knew. Is joy, it's celebrating the different, the exciting, the creative, and just celebrating this daft little show that connects so many of us. So I hope that my answer really is all of the episodes that have been and all of the episodes to come and this episode today. I hope that is my answer to what Doctor Who means to me.
That's a brilliant answer. That's really, really good. I think exactly,
yes. Good.
Exactly. Yeah, you've smashed it with that one. You've nothing to worry about.
God. I've been dreading that for 4 years. But I got through it.
There we go.
I'm sorry to everybody who have ever asked that. It's a horrible question, especially to say in a sentence. No one ever does it in a sentence.
Yeah.
Sometimes people do it in like
I think it
10
takes
minutes.
time.
Sometimes people do it in a word.
It takes time to kind of articulate it and then realize exactly what it is to you in your mind in that moment. But it's a great question and some great, really, really great answers from it. And that one, absolutely up there. And it is now where I retire my duties of being host of Who Knew. It's been a wonderful time, but I am now
You've been
passing
scarily good at this.
Passing
it's
on.
Worrying.
I'm going to pass on the baton back over to Josh for the future of this show again. To
Everyone is at home thinking, "Fucking hell, keep this guy."
No,
keep him in.
That's at all.
Sod Josh off. No, you've done a sterling job.
Oh, thank you.
I'm like looking after my baby.
Yes.
You've cradled it. You've milked it. You've given it milk from your warm teat. Sorry. You've bathed it. You've looked after it, George.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you
for caring for my child.
No, thank you.
Passing it back over to me.
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to sit down and do this. It is weirdly surreal, but is such a. It's been such a lovely experience.
Yeah. It's weird being on the other side of my own podcast. But from next week, when I start recording new episodes again, I'll be back doing the hosting gig.
Well, I'm a bit
nervous
right now. You have that baton. You can. I'll let you get back into that chair. We'll swap chairs metaphorically, and. Yeah. Do you want to wrap it up? Do you want me to wrap it up? What do you want to do?
Yeah, no,
how do you want to roll with it?
I'll happily wrap it up because I'm not going to make George do all the spiel. This is the first time I've done this in a long time, so bear with if I get this wrong. Well, thank you all very much for listening, and thank you all for being very, very patient with the return of Who Knew. It's back. It's going to be new episodes. This should be coming out on Doctor Who Day. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
61 years of Doctor Who and 4 years of Who Knew today.
Wow.
So from Tuesday, you should be getting the Dan Starkey episode.
Exciting.
Finally, a year and a half after I announced it and a year and a half after I recorded it. But it's a great episode. And then I'll be recording with Troy on the very same, well, no, that's a week earlier. What am I talking about? I'm getting my calendar in a muddle. Then Troy will be next, and then there'll be more episodes to come every 2 weeks for now. Maybe that'll change in the future. We'll see how we get on. And they'll be coming to you on the Who Knew YouTube channel, which you please subscribe and like and share. It's a bit scary coming back and not knowing if the audience is there, but so please help me out if you can. But yeah, the Who Knew YouTube channel. You've also got Who Knew on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and wherever you get your podcasts. Please again subscribe and give us ratings and whatever, anything that helps as we do this big comeback. You can follow us on Twitter. There's much point because it may be dying, but it's at Who Knew Podcast. You can follow me as well at Josh Ryan Carr. Also on Blue Sky because everyone's jumping ship over there. So for the first time, we've got Blue Sky. It's just the same. It's whoknewdwpod.bsky.social, whatever that is, and then joshryancarr.bsky.social. So you can find us over there as well. Instagram as well, whoknewdwpod on Instagram. And if you ever want to send us an email, you can email at whoknewdwpod@gmail.com.
Love that.
I think that's everything. George, please plug away anything that you want to plug.
Oh, it's spoken like a true electrician. I have a podcast with a good mate of mine, Cooper, called Nostalgia Bait. You may or may not have heard of it throughout this podcast episode. Unintentionally promoting the fuck out of it, but I'll take it.
No, it's fucking great. It's a great podcast, and it's one of the reasons Who Knew's back.
I really appreciate
please
that.
Go listen to it.
It's there's a new episode out every single Thursday at 10 a.m. We've got a YouTube channel. Just type in Nostalgia Bait, probably followed by the word podcast, and it'll come up. It's also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts, it's there, and you can go and listen and watch it. yeah, what do? We talk about Doctor Who, we talk about Star Wars, we talk about films, we basically talk about whatever the hell we want. So it's a very kind of relaxed environment where two guys just chat shit on the internet. A very original concept.
It's not enough of that.
I also do like live streams and Doctor Who-y content on my YouTube channel, which is just called George Sheard. So you can go and find that over there. And I'm also at GB Sheard on Twitch if you want to watch me terribly play video games. But yeah, that's all my outlets. So if you want to support me, you want to come and check out
all of the links
to
that will be in the description. So if you want to follow those, please go ahead. But yeah, this is the comeback. We're back, baby.
Don't call it a comeback. You've been here for years.
Yes. Yes. Play the track. No, George, thank you so much for stepping in as guest host. You were the only real option for me because you like I said, you're an old whore. You'll show up for anything, and
that'll be my gravestone, honestly.
It was contractually obliged when I went on Nostalgia Bait. You can go and listen to that as well. George said, okay, now I need to be on your podcast and I need to host it. You're not allowed to host. George is very demanding in that way. So,
I completely forgot that we've got an episode. If you check out episode 32 of Nostalgia Bit, that is an interview with you where we talk even more about
and we even teased the return of Who Knew at the end, which is a great idea.
Talk about that. We also talk more about the script stuff and the audio series as well. So if you want to check that episode out, which is basically the expansion of this, feel free to go and check that out.
Yes, it's definitely a good companion piece to this, please listen to Nostalgia Bait because it's great. So, thank you, George, for stepping into my shoes, and thank you all at home for listening. I can't believe we're back, but we're here, we're doing it. Let's see how we go. I can't wait to share some brand new episodes of Who Knew with you, and I'll see you next week. Can't believe I'm saying that. See you next week.
See you there. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. You can find us wherever you get your pods and on YouTube. Please give us a like, share, subscribe, and a review if you can. It really helps us out. Massive thanks to Oliver Chenery for the Corridor of Fame intro and the Sononauts for lending their cover of the Doctor Who theme to be the theme for the podcast. Who Knew is a New Kid Media production.